before the history books you were given, before the maps were redrawn, before Africa was described as discovered, there was fear. Not fear of wild animals, not fear of the unknown, but fear of African power. Because long before Europe rose to global dominance, there were African kingdoms so organized, so wealthy, so militarily disciplined that foreign powers approached them not as saviors, but as nervous visitors. This is the story they never wrote down, not because it didn't happen, but because it threatened the story they wanted the world to believe. Stay with me, because once you hear this, history will never sound the same again. Europe did not arrive in Africa as a teacher. Europe arrived as a trespasser, and when they came, they encountered kingdoms that shocked them. Kingdoms with standing armies, kingdoms with laws, kingdoms with diplomacy, taxation, international trade, and borders. Africa was not waiting to be ruled. Africa was already governing itself. Let's begin where the fear was strongest. West Africa. In the heart of West Africa rose an empire so rich that its wealth destabilized entire foreign economies. This was the Mali Empire. When Mansa Musa ruled Mali in the 14th century, his empire controlled major global trade routes in gold, salt, and knowledge. Now let's move east. In East Africa stood the kingdom of Aksum. Aksum was not isolated. Aksum traded with Rome, India, and Arabia. Aksum minted its own currency when Europe was still battering. Aksum adopted Christianity centuries before most of Europe. And then there was Great Zimbabwe. Stone architecture so advanced that Europeans refused to believe Africans built it. They blamed Arabs. They blamed Phoenicians. They blamed anyone except Africans. Because the truth was unbearable. Africans had engineered complex cities without European input. But perhaps the most feared of all was Benin. The kingdom of Benin in modern Nigeria had city planning so precise that European visitors compared it favorably to European capitals. Wide streets, advanced drainage systems, bronze art so sophisticated that museums still struggle to explain the techniques. And let us talk about Ethiopia. Because Ethiopia did what many African kingdoms could not. It resisted colonization. When Italy attempted to conquer Ethiopia, they were crushed at the Battle of A.D. Dubois. An African army defeated a European power in open combat. That victory terrified Europe. Now ask yourself a question. If Africa had no power, why did Europe bring guns? If Africa had no structure, why did Europe sign treaties? If Africa had no wealth, why did Europe loot? The truth is simple. Europe feared Africa. Not because Africa was savage, but because Africa was sovereign. History is not just about what is written. It is about what is erased. And African kingdoms were erased because they proved that domination was not destiny. It was a choice, a violent one. So when you hear someone say Africa has no history, understand this. They are not ignorant. They are repeating a story designed to survive conquest. Because a people who know their past cannot be easily controlled in the present. And a people who remember their power will demand their future. Africa was not weak. Africa was targeted. Africa was not behind. Africa was ahead. And the fear Europe carried into Africa still echoes in the silence of history books today.